Hey everyone, Sensei here, and welcome to another Marvel's Avengers video. Now in this video I'm going to go over all things Black Widow. I'm going to go over the skills, the ones that you have to actually decide on, the gear, the setup that I'm using, and all of that. And then also I'll be showing gameplay, of course, of Black Widow. Now Black Widow is my favorite character currently. She's very good. Her invisibility allows her to do so much, and she's very good at like crits and doing critical damage. She's also very good at maneuvering around the battlefield. She's very evasive, and just overall, she's really fun. Like in my opinion, I think she's like probably the best made in the game because her ranged attacks are very nice, her melee attacks are very nice. All of her skills and gear have great synergy with each other, and they're interesting. You can go a full like invisibility crit build like I do, or you can go like full stun. You can go melee. You can do a combination of the two. It's very good, and just overall, I do think that more people should try out Black Widow if they haven't. And I am probably like a lot of people where I didn't expect to I didn't think that I would like Black Widow that much. Before I played this game, I didn't. She was probably my least favorite. But yeah, Black Widow is very fun, and I think you're gonna enjoy her. Now for the skills, I'm not gonna go and explain every single one because most of them were self-explanatory. And you don't really change a lot of these, but I will just kind of go over the basics, and then I'll go over the build that I do, and the ones where you have to actually choose, and then my gear after that. So Black Widow has the standard attacks. I really like her air attack. Um, her heavy attacks as well are pretty strong. Especially the impact grenade is really nice, and that'll actually let you go into invisibility when you get your intrinsic meter up, which I'll go over a little later. But it's pretty standard stuff. I will do range in a minute. Her defense, Widow's line is really what makes her so good at maneuvering around the field. So that's something that you should definitely be doing, especially if you're trying to get away from something, because you have, sort of invincibility in the middle of it. So it's a good way to keep the combo going, to go around, and especially good while you're in the air. Um, to get to like air enemies as well. You can just kind of keep doing that. That's the biggest thing. And then of course you can do it to counter people. And then one of my favorite abilities, the whiplash, is right after the parry. Then you press triangle or whatever thing you're on in order to do the whiplash ability. And then yeah, you can just swing, and she can go pretty far. And again, her power surge ability is pretty nice. It'll her attacks will put shock on them, and you also get reduction, just baseline reduction to incoming damage. So that's really good for extra crit. Even though you have the staff, you can just use your range attacks, which is what I do a lot as well. Um, and then her intrinsic meter. One thing I want to go over though is her intrinsic meter. You definitely want to get this filled up because it takes a while, and you get 20% damage increase. So once you get the bonuses, then you can, it allows you to build up the meter pretty quickly. As you can see, crit hit, and then this is where you can go invisible. That's why you definitely want to get this. You don't necessarily need it early, but you do need it if you're going to go for the invisibility build that I will go over in a little bit. So just basically, once you get your intrinsic, once you get to be overcharged, then you just hold the heavy attack button, and then it'll make you invisible. Now it takes all your intrinsic energy away, but you'll go invisible. And there's a lot of bonuses you can get while invisible, so that's why that's good. And then this just increases that invisibility for 2 seconds. And then her Widow's Bite ability is just, it's another shock damage thing, and I'll go over some of the stuff of that later. But shock is really good for Widow because you can do a lot of crits, especially if you go with the crit build. And then finally her support heroic being Veil of Shadows, which makes her go invisible, and it lasts for quite a while too, especially with the bonuses. Now for her ranged attack, she's got the regular pistol shots, which is pretty fast as you can see, and she can also charge that up for a stronger burst of damage, and it's a barrage of bullets, and it increases the capacity. Now her other version is the full auto shot. Doesn't do as much damage, but it shoots a lot faster, a lot more bullets, and it's great at stunning. And there's even a bonus to increase the stun even more. And then her third option is the high caliber shot, much slower, fewer shots, but it hits so much harder and it can stagger them. And then the range, the power attack allows you to penetrate multiple targets. Also, you can get those bonuses from power attacks or range power attacks. And one of the biggest things is the critical attack damage that you get for the high caliber shot. So right here, the full auto, you can see how quickly it builds up the stun meter. So if you're going for takedowns build or stun build, you definitely want to go with full auto. The regular pistol though is really fast and it still does good damage. So it's like a good mix between speed and power, because it allows you to still attack fairly quickly, but you can also aim pretty well and charge it up for those power attacks. But if you're going for the maximum amount of range damage, the high caliber shot is definitely the best. It does shoot slower, has fewer bullets, but if you're hitting headshots and if you stack a bunch of crit modifiers like I do, then especially if you can get some Valor, which I don't have that much of, it does so much damage. So yeah, a lot of good ranged options here. Okay, so I'm going to start in the mastery tree and go over my choices and stuff, and then I'll go to the specialty and then the gear that I'm using currently. So first with intrinsic ability, one of the first things you want to do, especially if you want to keep the intrinsic going, is get the overcharge specialization. And in my opinion, the efficient overcharge is one of the best things you can get, because it allows you to, it increases the delay by 1 second. So for an extra second, you'll be able to hold off attacking, or like let's say you can't attack for whatever reason, um, the thing won't drain as quickly. You notice it very much so when you don't have this, especially when you do have it, because when you stop attacking, the overcharge, your intrinsic bar will drain very quickly. So this just gives you more time in between attacks, because early when I was playing, the main problem wasn't necessarily getting hit and losing your intrinsic ability. It was, after you're done attacking, if the enemy is not close enough, then you'll just start losing it before you know you can build it up again. So this just gives you that opportunity to keep that overcharge up. Now the other ones aren't terrible. You can get willpower when dealing damage with overcharged and increase the rate. But I just think that if you want to if you actually want to get to overcharge, this is going to make your life so much easier. So I definitely would go with that one. And now the middle one is kind of personal preference. I like just the attacks, because it just lets you all attacks increase the charge rate, so you can boost up your intrinsic meter no matter what you're doing. If you're doing a lot of headshots, then this is not bad. But again, I just overall I like the irregular attack ones. And as a ranged build that I'm currently doing, yes, this would be nice. But I've just even as a ranged build, I do put in some regular attacks here and there. But if you want to do nothing but headshots, then yeah. But this isn't going to help you that much if you're like doing a full auto, even the regular pistol, unless you're just really good at hitting headshots. If you're going to be exclusively using the high caliber rounds, then maybe this would be good. And then takedowns is also good, but I use that more in the full stun takedown build. So this other one, I picked the critical attack damage because in this build I'm going, which I didn't quite explain yet, but basically in this build I'm doing as much crit as I can, critical hit and critical hit damage with invisibility. I'm going to try and be invisible as much as possible, and I'm going to raise all crit stuff and try to put crit, which is like proficiency, um, on my gear. So I like this one because while you're overcharged, you'll do more crit attack damage. Range attack damage isn't bad either for the range build. And then just all damage in general is, that's going to be lower, obviously 5%. But if you're doing like a lot of melee attacks, then that's a good one to have. Whereas if you're going to be doing ranged, one of these two. So for the crit build, definitely go with the crit attack damage. Now going over to the range section, we have the hazard grenade. Now this is a grenade thing. Honestly, it's sort of personal preference. I like this one because of the increased status damage, and the status damage can definitely help, like if you're trying to get crits. So the other one that I picked, now I actually have plasma on the grenades. Now, if for a full crit build, you would want shock, but I have found that plasma is actually pretty invaluable, especially if you want to keep your intrinsic meter up, because putting plasma on things will cause them to get interrupted. So when they were about to do a big attack, then it might just stop them. And considering how hard people hit and how you can just lose your stuff really quickly, making them attack less is extremely valuable. So I like plasma. Plasma and shock though. Either one of it's kind of personal preference. Um, cryo also is kind of good, but I personally prefer plasma. So plasma or shock would both work there. And then finally, this one is, again, it's more of personal preference. I like the extra shots, especially because I use the high caliber shot a lot. So having those extra, rounds before I have to reload is very helpful. But you can also increase the reload speed or the recoil if you're having trouble with that. Again, this is more of a personal preference tree right here. Now, invisibility, this one is pretty nice. Now, I don't know if there's a bug. I'll go over it also when I get to my gear section, but I have a piece of gear that gives me like two of these upgrades for some reason. I don't know why, and no other gear I've seen does that, but yeah. If you have to choose one though, um, personally, I choose this one, extending the invisibility, because I'm trying to be invisible as long as I can. I have bonuses while invisible, so the longer I can stay invisible, the better. Yes, these other bonuses are good, but my goal is to stay invisible as long as possible. So the extended visibility is what I go for in this one. Now in this one, I went with the ranged attack damage because I am leaning more towards the range and the high caliber shots, so that's why I want that. Uh, Stun damage is also viable for the stun build or just in general. And then status damage is also not bad either, especially if you're building up the crit. But the build I'm doing again is it's more about crit, and the actual damage itself isn't as important. So I want the actual damage to come from my ranged attacks. And then finally for invisibility, increase crit attack damage while invisible. There's also the range crit chance. Both of these are viable if you find yourself. So like I currently have like 21% crit. So this one, if I went with this one, I don't know if it'll actually. It probably won't actually show it. I'll try it anyway. Yeah, it's not actually going to show it, but that would be an extra. That'd be like 28% crit. So it's really up to you. If you find yourself not critting that much, then and you're using a ranged build, then go with the crit attack. But I'm also trying to do as much damage as I can. So anytime I can do crit attack damage, that means when I do crit, I'll be doing even more damage, and it hits really hard. So I personally prefer that. And again, that works with melee or ranged. Or you can get the crit attack chance for melee. So if you're going with a melee build, this is definitely the one to go because it's a much higher crit chance, and it makes sense because it's a lot more dangerous to attack in melee. And then finally, for the last mastery tree, I just went with the regen packs. If you technically the heroic orb would be better because it would allow you to get your invisibility up more. But I've just been doing the regen packs just so I can survive if I do get hit. But um, overall, the heroic orb, as long as you can survive and you don't need the regen packs, heroic orb is good. I went with the regen packs for like those missions where you can't get regen stuff. And then I went with the crit attack damage again for headshots, especially good for the high caliber rounds because it hits really hard, and you're combining a lot. That's a lot of extra crit hit damage. You have this critical hit damage, this crit damage while invisible, this crit damage while overcharged. So if you're invisible and overcharged, you have what's that 30? No, yeah, 15 plus another 15, so that's 30 plus from headshots. That's a 50% crit hit or crit attack damage. And then, of course, the going back to high caliber rounds, that's another 10% for the critical attack. So that's 60% additional critical attack damage just from the tree alone. So, yeah, that's a lot of damage. But yeah, there's stun damage and ranged attack damage. But for the crit build, obviously you want the crit attack damage from headshots. And again, this is only if you're doing range. Obviously, if you're doing more melee and stuff, then the critical attack damage from headshots is not going to help. So you're going to want to go with really the only other option is the stun damage. Or if you're just going to be using full auto, then either stun or range attack damage. And then finally for the last one is, it's kind of it's a melee thing. It's melee specialization. So it's really up to you. I just like to get my heroic up quicker, so that's why I did the boost of energy from light and heavy attacks, because my melee will be mostly to try and build up my heroic so I can go invisible more. But if you're doing a more melee focus build, then personally I would do the finisher damage. But that's all for that. And now we'll go to the specialty selections. So also, I didn't go over the upgrades for those abilities, but basically the upgrade makes it so that when they're low health in Veil of Shadows, you can instantly take them down, and then defeating enemy while Veil of Shadows is active will extend the duration. And that's huge because it lets you keep the invisibility up for a while. Now I went with increasing the duration again. This one is like perfect. You absolutely would need this for this build because not only does it increase the duration of Veil of Shadows by an extra 3 seconds, but it'll also increase your critical attack chance by 25%. So while you're in Veil of Shadows, that 21% that I have that's an extra 25% on top of that. So that really is good. And another reason why I do critical attack damage because this is almost 50% chance to crit with my current gear, and I actually lost some proficiency. So yeah, and this one, this is teammate. I haven't noticed if it actually affects you or not, but I just went with the critical attack chance from teammates just in case. I was using the increased duration, but it still didn't seem to really last that long on my teammates. So I was like, let's just get the extra critical attack chance by 30% to help out teammates. Now for the assault, again, the two upgrades that you get without having to choose is just additional darts. So instead of one dart, then this will let you have 3 darts. Now, and this one is another one that's sort of personal preference, but I went with the attaching thing to deal shock damage because more shock damage means more crit. When you add in all the shock damage and stuff, you're gonna be critting almost all the time. So, and the other one I just went with the extra charge, so I can have as many charges as I can. Um, so yeah, just so I can put more shock damage out there. Now for the ultimate ability, the upgrades allow you to actually increase pistol damage, and the charge time is reduced. So with this, you can actually use your ultimate ability and then just shoot because your damage and reload speed is going to be increased, and it's going to not take as long to charge. So it's perfectly viable to go full ranged. And the other upgrades are just it gives you um, just an extra attack if you hold your light attack button both on the ground and in the air. And it's a really cool spin. But for the choices, I went with the increased staff damage while overcharged. While overcharged, I do attack with the staff a lot, but you could do Widow's Bite damage or the regen packs. It's one of those personal preference type things because it doesn't. Neither of these really matter in the crit invisibility build that much, though. If you are going to be using ranged more, then I would go like if you're going to be using guns while you're in the ultimate ability, then go with the Widow's Bite damage. And this one, I just increase the damage resistance and reduce the severity of hit reactions. So this is really nice because it gives you more defense and you're not as likely to get just knocked all over the place. But increased duration isn't bad, or stun damage. So again, some of these are just kind of personal preference, but I like the extra resistance. So now that's all of that. Now I'm finally gonna go to the gear. Um, so I have full 140 gear, and the one I have right now is critical attack damage when invisibility is active. Now I did get one, um, this one I think. Yeah, there it is. This is just increased damage, so I'm not sure why. This should apply to critical attack damage as well, so this one's probably more, but I'd already upgraded this. But preferably the increased crit hit chance. So I had just got this one, It has might. It doesn't have the precision that I want, but this is definitely the one that I was looking for. And I will upgrade this one later when I get more materials, because this lets you, higher chance to crit while you're invisible. But there are also some nice ones like status damage or regeneration, but you know, you definitely want to get the ones that have the invisibility upgrades, preferably the crit hit chance for this build, because you're going to be going invisible and critting all the time. Now, ranged is a it's a situation. Let's just say that I'm using the high caliber shock rounds because high caliber is really strong, and shock gives you the extra crit chance. So for a crit hit and crit damage build, I think that this is one of the best ones. But um, the damage itself, you don't necessarily need it to be high caliber, or like let's say you're using high caliber or you're using pistol, you don't really need the the damage type to be that. So for instance, if I wanted plasma, I had this plasma one right here for full auto. You're gonna build up quicker for full auto. So if you happen to get a high level one like this, then yeah, definitely keep it. But it it might actually be more beneficial to go with a full auto shock, because what you can do is go to full auto, build up the shock damage, because that's the only thing that's giving you. It's just giving you that elemental damage. After that, it doesn't matter. So you can build up the shock damage and then switch to high caliber rounds and then be doing the damage. So you don't have to build it up with that. You're not doing more damage. You're just doing elemental damage as you're attacking. So um, if you're going for as much crit as possible, then I would actually prefer the full auto shock. Build up the full auto, build up the shock damage, and then switch to the high caliber rounds for the really hard hitting headshots. And then the other ones aren't as it's not as important, but this one in particular, no, this one right here, this one is good. If you can get the increased damage from power attacks and using high caliber rounds, that'll be really helpful. And for a chance for the range power attacks to grant some type of a buff, defense or otherwise. If you're going full attack, then obviously you're going to want the damage buff. But those are what you would preferably try and get: a chance to hit with range critical attack to give you a buff, the shock damage of any kind, but preferably full auto, and then switch to high caliber, and then of course the increased damage from those power attacks. So stacking all that together is huge damage. I hit like 40 plus K from a headshot. So yeah, it hits hard. And this one, got the infiltrator suit. I definitely go for character specific perks. This one just gives you willpower regeneration while you're overcharged. As long as you're overcharged, if you happen to take damage, then you'll be generating. I don't think it's that important, but the increased amount of overcharge gain from each attack is big, and the reduction while intrinsic energy is depleted is big. So it lets you stay in overcharged longer. It lets you get overcharged quicker, which also allows you to go into overcharge, go invisible, build it up really quickly. So that's definitely one that you want to go for. And then finally, also the Infiltrator's belt. Increased heroic charge rate when invisibility is active. So while you have invisibility, you'll be able to charge it up even more. And increased charge of support heroic is huge because that's your invisibility. And then of course the duration of invisibility is increased. So yeah, that's definitely the way to go. And of course the stats you're going to want are proficiency above all else, for sure. Proficiency, and in this build I go with more range, so then you're going to want some precision damage, but also valor. I unfortunately don't have much valor, but proficiency and valor are definitely what you want above all else, because that lets you hit super hard. And yeah, that's about it for the artifacts. The artifacts I have are just kind of they have decent stats on them. That's the biggest thing you want to look at, but the perks that I have aren't really that great. Now, you can get like the crit hit chance for signature attack, stuff like that. Or like this one. This one will be really good. I'm going to actually switch this one out once I get some more gear modules, because this allows you, even though it does give me a lot of might, this allows me to get increased crit hit chance for power attacks, which, I can use my pistol for that, and it lets me charge up my support, which is my invisibility, even more. So Yeah, those are the things you want to look for in perks. And my major artifact is not maxed out yet, but this one just, it has Valor and Might on it. I don't know right now if all of the artifact perks are working correctly, but this one gives you status damage. So, you're going to be probably putting on shock a lot, so you'll be doing extra damage to them. So that's definitely nice. Of course, the critical chance when the damage boost is active isn't bad, but that's only when the damage boost is active, and this just gives you more stuff from the orbs, which isn't bad, but you know, I don't know. And then of course the final one for doing the whole campaign lets you drain heroics and get health back. So I do think that overall the Tactagon for Black Widow is the best one. So as you can see, Black Widow is just a very great character, fun character. You can go invisible, you can do a lot of crit damage, you can stay at range if you want, you can get in there. Take down master, maneuverability, just really great. If you haven't tried her out, definitely try her out. And hopefully, this is giving you some ideas on what you can do, showing just how strong she can be, and the synergy that she has with all her gear and skills and maneuverability and all that. So if you liked the video, please subscribe for future videos, and as always, thanks for watching.